From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, harvesting carbon in these Tennessee forests. We'll see how a new partnership hopes to improve research. Dean Foods may have found a buyer for large numbers of its milk processing facilities. And a California cotton gin is hoping hemp holds a promising future. A look at efforts to exchange one fiber for another. And cotton acres numbers are in. What will it mean for production in 2020? Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. One of the first pieces in the acreage puzzle is now in place. The National Cotton Council releasing its planting intention survey for the 2020 season. NCC saying U.S. cotton producers intend to plant 13 million acres this spring. That's down 5.5% from last year. The 39th annual survey went out in mid-December with results announced at the organization's annual meeting in New Orleans. By region, in the southeast, farmers estimate 9% fewer acres of upland cotton, including a near 12% drop in Georgia. Mid-South growers estimate a 6.5% decline year over year, with Tennessee also expecting a near 12% drop as more corn and soybeans go in the ground. And Southwest acres are expected to fall 3.4%, with both Kansas and Oklahoma planning to sow more acres than last year, while out west, farmers expect 20.5% fewer upland cotton acres in 2020. NCC says current prices tend to favor corn, soybeans, and wheat, and that's likely the driving force behind lower acreage expectations.
Cotton prices are down, corn, soybean prices are down as well. But when you look at the price ratios, the cotton to corn and cotton to soybean price ratios, when those ratios are down, we generally see a decline in cotton acreage, and that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing wheat prices are higher than what they have been. So in the survey, we had some responses also saying that they were going to plant more wheat. So most of the respondents didn't really indicate that they would plant more soybeans, but mostly corn.
USDA will release its prospective plantings report at the end of March. California is traditionally a big state for Pima cotton. However, one gin sees growing competition from hemp, and it's changing its equipment to potentially process hemp fiber instead. Betsy Gibbon has the story.
The California ag industry knows it's cotton. It's been a part of its history for decades.
Converting some of these machines.
Tom Piers with the West Island cotton growers may know it more than anyone.
Been managing this cooperative farmer-owned cotton gin for about 40 years.
As cotton is a part of the state's past, he's preparing for its future, recognizing a shift in momentum.
The separator, and then right there with that, we're going to move that machine basically over here.
Along with others in the co-op, Piers is in the process of converting this Riverdale, California gin into something new. One of the only gins in the country working towards processing hemp for fiber.
I'm just trying to visualize inside the machine what's happening. This trial and error.
The gin is modifying some of its machines and will soon see if it can process the hemp stem into different uses, a way to utilize more than just the leaf. Another market for the state's growers as they work to diversify.
The high concentration of the CBD is in the flower portion. It's the
and
top,
that's gone.
And that's gone. This came through a regular grain harvester, combine, modified to process hemp or to harvest hemp.
Businesses are doing the same, looking for efforts to find new ways to use hemp.
It can be used for construction materials, especially cellulose insulation that we've designed. This is just shown on a mechanical piece of equipment, your duct work, your air conditioning, but it's mainly sprayed in the wall bay of your stud walls, and then it's filled and covered up with drywall.
This is as the hemp industry faces growing pains. The Food and Drug Administration has yet to regulate the crop, something that's expected this year. Industry officials say the uncertainty is one reason why CBD oil prices have collapsed. An increase in acreage and lack of processing is another.
We had a large supply. We had a lot of growers last year that jumped in without takeoff contracts. There's a lot of supply, sitting in barns. We have a lack of extraction capacity. So we had kind of the perfect storm to put pressure on these prices.
As those in the California industry recognize a rich cotton history,
some way to use this to pick it up, and we may have to go change that.
They make way for tomorrow's crop and perhaps a new way to process it too. Reporting in Riverdale, California, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. It was a mixed message on the farm economy in the latest Kansas City Fed report, the 10th District Survey of Agricultural Credit Conditions, showing land values were higher out east, but farm income and credit conditions were weaker in the west. The 10th District includes Colorado, Oklahoma, Kansas, Wyoming, Nebraska, and portions of Missouri and northern New Mexico. Now, that report showing that those credit conditions in the district remain weak, but deteriorated at the slowest pace in more than 4 years. Non-irrigated farmland values rose 4% in the fourth quarter of 2019 and trended higher most of the year. Despite some signs of stabilization, there were differences based on where farmers lived within the district. Bankers saying the trade relief payments did provide some support in 2019, but stress in 2020 could be an issue given the current low prices for most commodities. Both Bayer and BASF say they'll appeal a $265 million judgment awarded to a peach grower over alleged dicamba drift. The trial ending last week in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. A jury of 7 awarded peach grower Bill Bader $15 million in compensatory damages and $250 million in punitive damages. He said dicamba drift severely damaged his fruit crop back in 2015. Bayer and BASF argued the peach losses were sparked by long-standing disease issues in the orchard. Attorneys for Mr. Bader call this a bellwether trial for future cases that could eventually become a class action. Now, Bayer releasing its own statement, we're disappointed with the jury's verdict. While we have empathy for Mr. Bader, Monsanto's products were not responsible for the losses sought in this lawsuit, and we look forward to appealing the decision. And BASF saying, we are disappointed with the jury's verdict and will be looking at our post-trial options. They too plan to appeal. Now take a look at this. 2 homes collapsed from a landslide along the Tennessee River. A fire department captured the moment the first house fell on Saturday night. You can see sparks flying when the home started to go. The second home was swept into the river by Sunday afternoon. That's according to the Hardin County Fire Department. No one was hurt. Emergency officials have closed off the area for now. Days of heavy rain have created a dilemma for authorities managing dams along swollen rivers in Mississippi and Tennessee, and in some places, rains this month have been 400% of normal. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joins us now with more.
Yeah, thanks, Clinton. That's been the pattern we've been in, obviously, for at least the past month. This is the estimated rainfall that we've seen over the past 7 days, and when you zoom in, you can just see the areas of 2, 3, 4, even 5 inches of rain here and there across Alabama, Mississippi, parts of Arkansas, northeast Texas, and on into Tennessee, where we just talked about. So it's been a lot of rain, and unfortunately, there's more coming. And take a look at this picture from AgDay producer Marge Kolba. She snapped this while going over the river in Jackson, Mississippi. As you can see, the water's really high and is at a major flood stage. She says the river was expected to crest over the weekend and into Monday. And the Jackson City mayor said power had to be cut to about 500 homes as a safety precaution. I'll have more in your forecast for the next few days coming up in just a little while.
Markets were closed Monday due to the President's Day holiday, but we'll dig into strategies for new crop corn anyway. That's next in analysis. And later, a deal is struck for the future of Dean Foods. We'll have details in our dairy report.
Ag Day, brought to you by Corvus Corn Herbicide from Bayer. Get an early season win against weeds with Corvus for end of season rewards.
Markets were closed for the holidays, so later today, traders will have a chance to process China's decision to approve the import of all poultry products from the U.S. Now, this comes from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs. China lifted its ban on poultry meat back in November of 2019. This new announcement includes the import of live birds as well. Back as recently as 2013, the U.S. was shipping roughly $40 million worth of live poultry to China. Brian Doherty, Total Farm Marketing, our guest here in studio today. Brian, let's talk about the new crop of corn that is yet to be put in the ground, or maybe has already started down in the Gulf Coast states. We're looking for a few more acres this year.
Yeah, here's where we're going to start. We're going to start with the USDA baseline projections.
Okay.
That's a starting point. And right now you're probably looking at increases in both yield and acreage from last year. USDA is saying probably 94 million planted acres. Yield 179. Those are big numbers compared to this past year where we had prevent plant. So when you kind of run those numbers, it could could push that carryout number up to 2.8 to almost 3 billion bushels, stocks usage. Those numbers become near record large. That means a downside potential, probably $3 on the board at some point should those numbers bear fruit. So with corn stuck around $4, kind of in no man's land, not high enough to make easy sales, no-brainer sales, yet on the other hand, we don't want to let this slip through our hands. So now's the time to really start thinking strategically. If I don't want to forward sell, what should I do or what can I do? And that's
a great
really
question.
Where we want to go with this.
And do we have any kind of answer for that? I mean, a lot of times we try to sell and kind of match our crop insurance bushels and things like that, right?
We do, and farmers are really, really good at a lot of things, and they wear a lot of hats. So you're an input manager, you're a production manager, and then you've got this stuff, inventory, what you produce, and you need to manage that. So when you manage that, you need to look at what tools are best suited for me in my operation. If it's just forward contracting, you're somewhat limited. So look at all the tools out there, hedge to arrive, a lot of the cash tools, accumulator contracts, things like that. Make sure they fit your level of expertise and your comfort zone. Our suggestion is farmers really strive for a balanced approach. So if corn is at $3, you know, what did you do to defend that? Did you do enough bushels? Did you use put options? Or if corn corkscrews to the top side and all of a sudden, when the blink of an eye in 3 weeks and somewhere at $6, did you sell everything at a much lower price? So a balanced approach, using the right calls. Short dated calls are a newer tool. Those are great tools for farmers who are aggressively forward selling. Don't be afraid to explore just outright hedging. It's probably the cheapest way to execute a strategy, but you need to make margin call if need be, so know where you want to exit and have that conversation with your lender on how to finance that position.
Yeah, lots of options out there, and obviously everybody's farm's different. They all have different comfort levels, but there are ways to try to manage this market.
Yeah, I heard a speaker recently talk about, you know, your life begins at the end of your comfort zone, so stretch it out a little bit and learn.
All right, 2020, good advice, appreciate it. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
To discuss marketing strategies, call 800-334-9779 or visit stewartpeterson.com. Join Andrew McCrae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast all about production agriculture. Brought to you by Pivot Bio Proven, the nitrogen-producing microbes that stay put, weather or not. Visit pivotbio.com.
Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joining us here, Mike, and so this is officially the last of winter.
Oh,
right?
yeah, sure it is.
Hey, the groundhog said so.
Not. No, there's snow on the map, and there'll be snow on the map coming up in 3 or 4 weeks, I'm sure. Now, obviously, as we head into March, you can't get quite as cold as you can during January and February in the lower 48, but it's still going to be cold at times, and you can see upslope snow into parts of Colorado, western Kansas, even down into the panhandle of Texas as we start today. Some snow over the northern and eastern portions of the Great Lakes, and it's showers and thunderstorms along this cold front. Unfortunately, the front's moving a little bit slow as well, so these showers and thunderstorms may last for a little while in each specific location. Look back behind this front, though. We're looking at 3 areas of high pressure. So besides some upslope snow in places in the Rockies, you're really talking dry weather in most other locations. So let's put the maps into motion. Heading through tonight, you can see the rain actually developing behind the cold front as well. That's when it starts to slow down a little bit. You'll start to get some of that overrunning rain there. Showers and thunderstorms scattered out ahead of it. And heading through the day tomorrow, then, you can see despite the second dome of high pressure moving into the northern plains, the clockwise flow around it, giving some upslope snows in parts of western Kansas and even into eastern portions of Colorado. Of course, some of the eastern range there can get some decent amounts in a situation like this. All right, taking a look at precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours, you can see mainly light amounts, but that's going to change as we head through the next 36. We're going to see some pretty heavy amounts, parts of East Texas all the way into the Carolinas, and unfortunately those are the same places that have been getting rain. It's just the pattern that we're in. We have the warmer air holding in most of the southeast, cold air coming south, and that combination always sends fronts those directions. You can see the snow past 24 hours adding in the next 36, mainly the Great Lakes in the northeast, although we'll see some areas getting 2 to 4 inches. in parts of the eastern Rockies and parts of Nebraska and Kansas as well. Temperatures today still pretty cold across the northern plains, but mild along the Gulf Coast. Lows tonight, whoa, -10 in Bismarck, so that's some Arctic air still coming in, but you can see it stays mild in the far southeast. Otherwise, it's on the cold side. You can see that's all because of the trough. A couple pieces of energy kind of riding through that. The trough then moves away, so we go to a little milder period by the weekend, but kind of a stormy period developing as well as we head into early next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Page, Arizona, first of all, chilly, lots of sunshine today, high temperature 53. Houston, Texas, mostly cloudy, an afternoon thunderstorm is possible, high around 77. And finally, heading to Washington, PA, showers early in the day, but then just clouds and mild, high 51.
There's a deal for Dean Foods. Details next in our dairy report and later.
I'm Charles Denny. A unique partnership to grow healthy forest in Tennessee. That story from the University of Tennessee Arboretum in Oak Ridge coming up on Ag Day.
There's a deal for the future of Dean Foods. Dairy Farmers of America says it will acquire 44 of the processor's facilities as part of a $425 million deal. DFA says the 44 facilities are part of the direct store delivery system as well as some corporate and other asset functions. The two parties are now waiting on approval from the court overseeing Dean Foods Chapter 11 bankruptcy and the U.S. Department of Justice. The DOJ is evaluating any potential antitrust issues associated with the purchase. Dean Foods is the nation's largest fluid milk processor and DFA the nation's largest dairy cooperative. As part of our America's Conservation Ag movement, California dairies are decreasing their carbon footprint, and they have the stats to prove it. According to a study by the Journal of Dairy Science, greenhouse gas emissions per gallon of milk is down more than 45% over the last 50 years on California dairy farms. Researchers saying the estimated 45% reduction may even be too conservative because the study doesn't take solar panels into consideration. The study looked at GHGs and water use from 1964 to 2014. When we come back, managing carbon in the forest. We'll head to Tennessee to see how a new program may help future researchers get the data and information they need to grow those healthy trees.
America's Conservation Ag movement is brought to you by these great foundational partners, empowering resilient and sustainable agriculture.
Higher standards for cultivating forest land with the intent of benefiting the environment. That's part of an agreement between UT's Institute of Agriculture and a group called the Nature Conservancy. Charles Denny reports on efforts to manage forests to produce better timber and cleaner air.
UT Ag Research manages thousands of acres of forest statewide, including timber at its Oak Ridge Arboretum. Here you'll find hundreds of species of trees available for study and just for the public to enjoy. Now Ag Research has entered into an agreement with the Nature Conservancy, a nonprofit working to protect our land and water. The two organizations will manage the timber here, part of TNC's Working Woodlands program.
Why we're excited about working with the university? Well, it really starts with the land. The Nature Conservancy has identified the forests that the university owns and the surrounding lands as being some of the highest conservation priorities in the state.
The partnership will allow UTIA to expand research on forest and climate change and train future foresters.
This will be something that our faculty can use moving forward to mine the data for all kinds of good research projects on the ground. We'll be able to monitor our forests long term. We'll be able to measure the timber and carbon resources as we move forward.
Trees convert carbon dioxide into oxygen for us to breathe. And in this partnership, contributing organizations can earn what are known as carbon credits as they help replenish the forest. A carbon credit is where an organization purchases a certificate to offset their emission of carbon dioxide through past forest harvest. Martin Schubert with UT Ag Research says he's walking through a carbon bank right here, the already well-maintained forest.
It is a testimony to the leadership of the University of Tennessee and the Institute of Agriculture, and that we've gone from, prior to UT ownership, we've gone from hydrocarbon extraction to carbon credits due to the management over the past 80-some years.
The pledge between UTIA and TNC is set to run through 2060. Timber inventories are already underway in the new year, and everyone's in agreement about the positive impact of having healthy forest. This is Charles Denny reporting.
Thanks, Charles, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.